Welcome to the Breadwinners. We're back for season 5 and taking your questions about work, life, and everything in between. I'm Jennifer Owens. I served as editorial director of Working Mother Media and founded the Working Mother Research Institute.
And I'm Rachael Ellison. I'm an executive coach and management consultant who works with companies big and small to design workplace policies that work for all employees. There's nothing we like more than talking about work-life strategies, but we know that in the real world, such questions can be very personal and a little prickly. In this season of The Breadwinners, we tackle them all.
Rachael.
Yes.
So today's question's another goodie. Are you ready for a goodie?
I like to understand what your definition of goodie is.
I know. Sorry about that. It's an interesting question from a breadwinner that needs our insightful commentary. Is that a goodie?
Yes, that's always goodie.
All right. Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. You know, you told me you were ready, and then I asked you again if you were ready. So I don't know. I guess we're ready. So anyway, here we go.
Okay.
Dear breadwinners, I hate my boss. I know I shouldn't say that, but I do. I've come to realize that she operates from a position of fear and anxiety. Let's just say that's not my way. But if I want to get anything done, I have to work with her and get her on board. But so far, she's rejected nearly every boat I've sailed her way, even as I've tried to offer a destination that might account for her fears. I like the company. I like my coworkers. I like my role. I just don't like her. What can I do? Whoa.
This is good. This is good.
Is it run for the hills? Is that just my answer for all of these things? It's just run for the hills. That's it.
Exactly. I really appreciate the boats, the sailing, the destination. Everybody, there's a lot of thought being put into this relationship.
Yeah.
Which is key. I wonder, two things come to mind for me. And I guess one would be to be introspective about it, right? So what is it? She's driven by fear and anxiety, and that's not me. Okay, that's awesome. But what is that? The word triggering is triggering, but but what is that setting off in you? What kind of reaction? Because it's not just, you have to kind of explore, what is that bad taste in your mouth taste like? So
that's interesting.
What is this hitting in me? What do I need to be aware of? And how do I process?
Internally.
Yeah.
Oh, because I was immediately going externally and thinking about what's triggering her.
Well, I think that's where we would all go, right? But I think what happens is, the more that this listener just sees the boss as driven by fear and anxiety, it kind of becomes these sort of polar.
Oh, right.
Get kind of entrenched.
You start to shift your relationship to being polar opposites.
Right.
That's true.
There's something called the ladder of inference, and it's really
do tell.
Yeah. So the ladder of inference is something used in well, I guess this is more of the external piece, right? So it's about first reflecting on yourself and what it's setting off in you. And one of the theories that has really been on my mind lately, but I've seen it's kind of everywhere you look, both in psychological literature about self-development, but also in negotiation and business, this concept of internal family systems. And really the idea is that you have these parts of yourself that are reacting to, you might even be unconsciously reacting to things that other people are doing based on stuff that you've experienced, right? So the introspection, I think, is where I start, because it's helpful to know, why am I reacting so strongly? because I think that the tendency that we have is to expect that eventually I'm just going to be right. And she's
Yeah.
going to realize the living in fear and anxiety is not worth it. And she needs to do things my way. I'm not saying that's what you're saying, listener, but that's what we all do, I think, to some
Yeah.
extent.
Yeah.
I'm right. She's wrong. She needs to get her head on straight. And once I explain to her rationally many times what is going to be,
What's right?
then she will know. So that is probably not how it's going to work. So it's really important to think about, maybe it's the emails that you get from her, maybe it's the conversations that you have, maybe it's a certain turn of phrase, maybe it's a certain position that she's taking, but just take a step back and kind of read your internal room for a minute
Yeah.
and think about, like, what is this setting off? And get curious about it. So I think part of that theory of internal family systems is that we have all these parts that get triggered, but then we also have this bigger self, this idea that, like, there is all these different parts exist, but, like, you are you, and you have a way, like, when you're calm, when you're confident, there's like 8 C's or something. Like, when you're kind of clear on what you need and you're not coming from a reactive place, it's much easier for you to kind of get to the outcomes that you want. So I guess check internally to see that you're not reacting from
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
that place. And the second thing, I mean, I talked about the ladder of inference. I think there are many different ways you can examine what is going on in the interactions that you two are having. This ladder of inference, kind of what happens is we sort of, when you think about how we understand someone's position, what someone's about, what their agenda
What
is,
their motivation is. Yeah.
we tend to kind of just go straight to drawing conclusions.
What? I would never do that.
So we're already up there and then we act, right? So it's like almost like we do that. So if you imagine the bottom of a ladder, like, instead of jumping to that top where you're drawing conclusions and acting, you really need to think about, wait a second, like, what are the facts on the ground?
Yeah.
Like, what data is available to me right now to understand the dynamic between us, right? And then as we go up the ladder of inference, we start to kind of put our beliefs, context, values, like, on top of it, and kind of start to draw conclusions from there. But when we stop ourselves and go back to the data, it's helpful. But if we go, so there's all the available data, then we say, like, okay, which data do I feel is the right data? Like, let me just see, okay, well, she said this and she rolled her eyes, kind of, or like that email had caps. So we pick and choose which of the data is most important here based on our kind of perspective on the world. Then we make interpretations. Oh, she wrote that email with all caps, not because she forgot
the caps lock,
but because she really can't stand that I'm talking to this colleague about that. So then we get there. And then we draw conclusions. So because she can't stand that, that means she is stuck in fear and anxiety. And then we have to address that, just kind of react to that.
Yeah, you're asking us to take a moment and our assessment of the situation, and kind of how did we get to this assessment that we think she rules in fear and anxiety?
Yeah.
As a starting place.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you got to go back to the data. And you got to go back to thinking about kind of what assumptions are you making? What conclusions are you drawing? Beliefs. Like, what are your beliefs and what actions are you making from there?
Right. I mean, this person got to that role somehow.
Right.
But then isn't that what the Peter principle, that people get promoted like one step beyond their capabilities or whatever that is?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, when I was younger, my strategy for dealing with such bosses was just to be real mad and come home and yell about them. That
There
really
you go.
worked really well.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like it's interesting as I'm walking this listener through some possible next steps, I'm thinking about relationships that I've had
Right.
with people in those roles where I've been like, oh my God, they're just,
And some were, well, there is always the thought that they have information that you don't have, too.
yeah.
I think there is respect with less of a grounding in philosophy and the like that you have. The gut reaction queen over here, there is the thought that they know something, or they've, especially if they've been at the company a long time, that
Mhm.
they somehow know how the world works. Doesn't mean they're right, but they're dealing with, they've bumped into walls before, and they just don't want to do that again. So then you have to figure out what walls are they going to throw up at every turn, and how many can you dismantle, or just don't dismantle some of them. Like, okay, you don't want to do that, I'll move on, I'll do something else. Like,
Right.
not meaning switch the job, but I'll find a project that everyone likes, and let's go move on, do that.
Yeah. I think that's,
It's just hard when it's, as someone who likes to build things or improve things, make change, which, that's all what we're in the work world for.
Mhm.
When someone is constantly like, I don't know about that, variations on that. Did you talk to so and so? Did you, and just throwing up random things that don't seem right or helpful. It's very frustrating. I completely know the frustration of this.
Yeah.
Growing a successful business has never been easy. But whether you're navigating a complex industry or trying to reinvent one, our breadth of banking experts are here to collaborate on market-proven solutions. At KeyBank, we're built to grow with your changing needs because we're not just here for the business you are now, we're here for the business you'll become. Reimagine business as usual. KeyBank opens doors. Learn more at key.com/B2B.
When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
And my advice is to basically listen to everything you're saying, because your goal in this is to not create a nemesis out of your boss.
Right.
That's, I'm in a stage in my career, my life, and the like. It was called out to me by my lovely friend Lori that I often have a nemesis at work. And it's true, because I think I set up things where I am right. I mean, I am right. I just got there way faster than you did. And I don't want to spend a lot of time bringing you along. So
Right.
now
Right.
I've
Yeah.
gotten, I want to slow down. I'm not saying I wasn't right. I just want to slow down a bit. And I would rather not have an enemy at work. And I'd really rather not that person be my boss. I'd rather let's all work together and try to get stuff done. And that's, where's the compromise that I can find there, or make them feel better, feel more confident.
Right.
If they're not confident, it may be you, which is awful to say, like, I'm sorry, but it may be something's, you're not gelling with them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can't, and that may be a larger issue, and change needs to happen. But I like the idea of thinking introspectively here, because I, right now, am spending a lot of time thinking internally like that too.
Yeah. I think it's hard. And again, like, it's hilarious to me, like how quickly I can go there for someone else.
Oh,
Right.
right. You really should think introspectively.
Yeah,
You
but
should be
it's
doing the
also just
work.
applying these theories. And then when I think about myself and I think
I
about
hate her.
everyone else situation, it's like, oh my God, she is the worst. And like only cares about number one and blah, blah, blah. And like,
She's
And
too afraid to make any changes because she'll have to explain it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
so I get it. I'm not saying it's easy, but that is what.
That's what education and the literature would tell us to do.
Well, that's what I would tell you as your coach, not necessarily do myself, but yes.
Yeah. But then I also let us acknowledge that I think there are people who get into positions where, isn't it true that there's very little manager training out there? People get moved into jobs they're not prepared for it. The organization doesn't prepare them for it and just says kind of sink or swim. And so the other option to sink or swim is just tread water. And so that's how I think some of this stuff happens. Is I got here, I can't let it go. I don't, and you upstart are, freaking me out here. I really do think that happens.
I think so too. I do want to say, as someone who has designed manager trainings, overseen the design of manager trainings, I think it's really hard to get manager trainings right. And
is that right? Like, yeah.
I think because, it's like the idea of like, oh, we are going to teach you math skills. And then
you're going to know everything you need to know in this particular job.
For every particular individual that you, it's just,
I agree. I have been to wonderful programs and the like, and I often don't see myself in the training or the like, because when I was running teams, I was in editorial and I was dealing with creative types. And you'd be going to things where they're talking about dealing with a group of analysts or a group of engineers or, and I'm like, oh, geez, I have like editors, creative directors, research. Like I have all these different people. I have there's a reduced resources. I'm constantly being, the stress of publishing dying and, like all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm not in a growth industry. I'm not, so I personally have experienced that of being in trainings and like, this is really great. I wish my whole organization used the language that you're using here in this. That would be a step one. If we could all agree that we call this that.
Right.
So yes, you can tell. I've had that same experience of like, and also had the experience of, hey, like the first time I had to manage anyone, it just, here you go. And it was a 1-to-1. I just had one report. And we had to, oh my God, it was so, I think it's better when you have more people because 1-to-1, it's almost like they're your assistant.
Yeah.
Because then, and you don't know how to offload tasks. You're just like, do this.
No, exactly.
Yeah. So I don't know what I don't know. And here's the other thing. What do you think about going around the boss? So you've got this project you want to do. You've brought it to her or him or whatever. You've brought it to your boss and they've thwarted it for the umpteenth, it's yet another project they've thwarted and you're very frustrated. What's the thinking on going around them?
So,
because it's very tempting.
Again, I've done it.
Me too.
And I know it is not your best look. I think it really depends what the challenge is. I think if you're going to say like, to just kind of
be mindful of the fallout that can come from such things.
Yeah. Also, are you just complaining or do you have a particular request? Like,
right. Could you peel back your request to what, like the nub of what actually you need help with the manager? Because this is like being at preschool, standing next to a mom and saying something like, hey, your kid is terrible, because you're going to be stuck with that mom with you through all the classes for the next, like through elementary school, maybe further, be real careful before you say to another parent something not complimentary about their child. That's all I'm saying.
True.
Well, okay. So you've got a boss, you feel like they're just living in fear. what do we need to think about
let's
first?
do two things. Let's, look inward sounds so broad, but the idea is to
Still love it.
try to scan your own kind of internal landscape. Like, what is this ticking off?
Yeah.
Who is she reminding you of? What do the comments sound like, right? Like, try to kind of pinpoint what part of you is kind of really being rattled by this kind of, by her approach, because there are times when you can be clear, and like, I bet if you tried and you were not, after a weekend or in the middle of a vacation or on a week when she's out, like, and you feel like, oh, I'm feeling particularly calm and collected and confident right now.
Yeah.
Like, think about it then, and think about, like, what does that set off, right? Don't think about it in the midst of the moment.
Right.
That also, really try to practice best practice in terms of conflict resolution and just getting to the bottom of, like, walking yourself back from making assumptions, drawing conclusions, and just go back down to, like, wait a second, what are the facts on the ground? Right? How do I take it from there? So,
yeah. And I would say take her at her word. If she says, here's a wall, here's a wall, here's a wall, at least at the start, okay, then go deal with those walls and come back. Now, don't do it as a Sisyphean thing, but try it. Like, see, could you proactively, the next time you're coming to her, take down, I already took down these 3 walls. And just, I don't know. See if you can assuage her fear.
Right. Yep.
And then it may turn out no, but you're going to have to do a little work.
Right.
Before you decide. Internal work, external work. I always go to the external because it's easier.
True. I think it's easier for all of us in some ways. Not sure it's always the most effective, but it does feel like the best place to go first.
Thank you so much for joining us on The Breadwinners. Do you have a sticky work-life question for us? Send it our way at thebreadwinnerspod@gmail.com. We're here to help.
And please take a moment to rate and review our show. It really helps. And of course, join us on Facebook or Instagram at The Breadwinners Podcast. And until next time, keep hustling.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.